a little more about the two players. You were saying with Huey, which he goes by Huey, William Huey Jensen. Last year we saw him missing a Hall of Fame just by 1 vote. Most people consider to be a favorite to make the Hall of Fame this year. Alex Binek, actually, on the other hand, whereas Huey saw a lot of his success, in the late 1990s, early 2000s, Alex was a member of the U.S. national team just as much as currently as last year, and that was really his breakout performance. So as the two players get started here, we see both players leading out on tapped shock lands. Alex will be our first play of the game, though, with Avacyn's Pilgrim. And Pilgrim, Huey will go ahead and keep pace with that with a Pillar of Flame, removing that from the board. In this matchup, how important would you say it is for Alex to get one of his early game threats down here?
You know, honestly, I don't think it's as important to get down an early threat in this matchup as it is to get down a threat that sticks. What Alex has to reckon with, essentially, is a ton of removal. The speed of Alex's deck is a little less important than a card like, say, Voice of Resurgence, which can punish Huey for trying to get rid of it. Or dropping down a Thundermaw Hellkite and having it stick. You know, what's going to happen is William is going to fight back with cards like Warleader's Helix and Sphinx's Revelation to return his life up. And he's basically going to try to go point and click all of these things. Kill that, kill that, kill that. He's got a little touch of Verdict, but it's not about pure speed for Alex. Alex is not running the Flinthoof Boars that we saw Osip running. He's less like Willie Edel, and he's a little bit bigger than that.
All right, well, what William's gonna have to reckon with is that Alex made a Boros Reckoner followed by Voice of Resurgence. While I was able to get in for 3 with the Boros Reckoner and now an additional 3, Huey did have Snapcaster on Pillar of Flame to take care of the Voice of Resurgence. Probably one of the more important answers in this matchup, because that's one of the only clean ways that Huey has to deal with a Voice of Resurgence.
We see 2 very ridiculously powerful cards on Alex's side of the table, facing off versus no slouches themselves, Snapcaster Mage and Augur of Bolas.
Yeah, they're remarkably efficient. Luxodon Smiter and Boros Reckoner. We have a 3/3 for 3, a 4/4 for 3. Really a lot of power for not very much mana.
And William Jensen passes back. This is a 4 Restoration Angel deck, and you can tell with those 2 creatures in play the value that a Restoration Angel has in this kind of deck. Yeah. We've been seeing the Flash deck for quite some time, and we see one of the cards that it really hates seeing. That's the Voice of Resurgence. And Alex puts that down before the attack, just so that any shenanigans William might have during the attack phase will be costly.
Right, and it looks like, so Alex puts William on the back foot. He makes that swing with Boros Reckoner and Luxodon Smiter. Jensen and Huey goes and blocks with Snapcaster Mage just to gain 4 life on the Smiter. He takes 3 off Reckoner. That's the 3rd time he's been hit by it, which drops him to 11. And he's going to go ahead and looks like he's going to look for an answer for that Voice of Resurgence. He's angeling on the Augur of Bolas, maybe to try to find a Pillar of Flame.
Well, sometimes you don't hit anything, sometimes you hit a Pillar of Flame, and sometimes you get a Warleader's Helix. Warleader's Helix, one of the best cards in this blue-white-red deck from William Jensen. I personally feel like the existence of it in the deck can change the tenor of your deck very much.
Yeah, now, as we saw that last turn, William, during his main phase, played Restoration Angel to blink the Augur of Bolas. You know, doing that, it's really the presence of Voice of Resurgence that's making him do that. But that really takes away a lot of things like counterspells from his deck. You know, how important is that now that Voice is really kind of trapping him in his main phase?
It's not a fun place to be. I mean, every single card that the Voice ends up turning into a elemental is just such devastation. I mean, Jensen needs to get that off the table. Here's a Gore Clan Rampager that's going to say, I don't think so. And now, let's pretend that he has an Azorius Charm to get rid of the, but he does not use one.
Right.
Let's pretend he had one. Sure, his Angel would live, but there'd be this huge, token that would have been created for free.
Right, and I think as soon as we saw the printing of Voice of Resurgence, I remember the first card that everyone said, wow, this is going to be really good against is Azorius Charm. It's going to force people to cycle it on their main phase, and really it takes away a lot of the good modes of the card.
Now we see Jensen cast Snapcaster main phase just to have a body to kill, theoretically, that Voice of Resurgence. Also main phase the Warleader's Helix, just helping him get out of the dumps of a 6 life up to 10 life.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because he had enough mana to play. If he'd held that Snapcaster, he could be playing Snapcaster War Leader's Helix, but he just, despite the fact that that Helix would gain 4 life, it looks like he is just too worried about his life total. And as we saw here, if he didn't have that chump blocker, this would be a lethal attack here as Alex makes the Thundermaw Hellkite.
Now, we need a Supreme Verdict for William if he's going to be able to be in this game, I believe. Only 2 Supreme Verdicts in his main list.
All right, and yeah. So the question is, does he have the Supreme Verdicts in his main deck? He's only running two Supreme Verdicts, so he's gonna have to have one of those here. It looks like to really be able to answer the board, but he's gonna pass back.
Passes the turn. Let's see. Possibilities include cards like Turn Burn. Sphinx's Revelation would not. We see Snapcaster. Okay.
Right. So this is interesting. As Snapcaster, it looks like the Snapcaster will probably have to target War Leader's Helix so that he can live. This is during the attack, so Alex is going to go ahead and get one star. The question is, and he's going to go ahead and get another.
There we go. I was hoping that we'd see that. Jensen uses the Snapcaster Mage targeting the War Leader's Helix, and then uses the War Leader's Helix targeting the blocking Snapcaster Mage. This means that the Boros Reckoner is not going to be damaged. Jensen is going to gain the 4 life, go up to 6, take 5, go down to 1. Oh, and then we see Trample. Trample is going to be finishing him off. The Selesnya Charm on the now unblocked Boros Reckoner finishes off Jensen. Jensen just looking for one more card draw there, really.
Right, well, it looked like he was definitely in damage prevention mode there. If you didn't follow exactly what happened there, we had the Snapcaster Mage, he targeted War Leader's Helix. He actually helixed his own Snapcaster because he was at such a low life total, he didn't want the Snapcaster to deal 2 damage to the Boros Reckoner. So he was kind of gaining 6 life with that spell. But we saw it all didn't matter because Selesnya Charm does give Trample, which means all 5 of the damage from the Boros Reckoner is going to go through because William had removed the blocker.
Right. Now, from the sideboard, Alex Binek, amongst other things, has 3 Burning Earth. Now, you might ask yourself, why on earth would a deck running 22 non-basic lands run Burning Earth? Well, back in the day, the card Mana Barbs would just hurt you no matter what land you tapped. And Alex is running the assumption that there are going to be decks that are going to be more controlling than him, and Alex will not care if he hurts himself as long as his opponent also is hurt.
Yeah, we've had Mana Barbs. We saw some play as recently as the Pro Tour in Honolulu, the one that Brian Kibler ended up taking down with Wolf Run Ramp. It was actually one of the more potent cards against that ramp strategy. And it's not a surprise that, especially in a format where people are playing Sphinx's Revelation and Nephalia Drownyard, that we see cards like Mana Barbs, or in this case Burning Earth, coming out of people's sideboards.
I expect that Alex Binek is going to bring in all 3 Burning Earth, and I also believe he will bring in 2 Boros Charms. The Boros Charm basically having the double mode of, it's certainly possible that he might end up doing other modes, but I expect he'll be using Indestructibility and Double Strike as his primary uses for the Boros Charm.
Yeah, and that seems, Boros Charm really gives Alex a lot of options. We saw that it's interesting, because there's a lot of creatures in the blue-white-red flash deck, there are a lot of combat tricks. We saw Binek there, he Blood Rush to Gorklan Rampager. He also used Selesnya Charm, both just as combat tricks to really keep Jensen on the back foot there.
Yeah.
So I like it when you say, he now has the option of Boros Charm. Not only does it save his team from a Wrath, but it is yet another combat trick that you can push damage with.
I view Boros Charm as the best counter spell in Standard right now. Basically, it's a counter spell on the card that removes your good creature, and then it has this, I guess you could say, split thing where you can also kill them. So, now obviously you can use Boros Charm for 4 damage, and it's possible Alex will do that. I've used that many, many times for the 4 damage, but just the reason why it's in the sideboard, it's to bring in against a deck like Jensen has here, to protect your creatures from being killed, and then the upside of being able to cause a lot of problems damage-wise. Meanwhile, what do you think Jensen is going to bring in?
Well, so he has a couple of different ways he can go at the matchup. He does have, well, one thing is that he can just try to race back. He does have 2 Thundermaw Hellkites in his deck. I think one of the things that will for certainly a plan that he could go on is trying to just be a little more solid in his removal. He does have 2 detention spheres in his sideboard, and especially because most of Alex's primary threats. So you think about what cards does Jensen lose to? He loses to Boros Reckoners, Thundermaw Hellkites, Luxodon Smiters, Voice of Resurgences. Detention Sphere is excellent against all those cards. Sometimes, if especially when you're removing something that costs the same or more mana than the Detention Sphere becomes a really sweet card. I imagine we'll be seeing those. Also, Turnburn. Turnburn's a very generic answer to a lot of cards. It's another way he can kill Voice of Resurgence without letting Alex get a Star token.
Yeah, another thing to think about with Turnburn is Turnburn, much like Far Away, is also capable of creating 2-for-1 situations.
Yeah, no, going back to M14 cards, William Jensen does have, actually in his sideboard, an M14 card. He is running 2 Celestial Flares in his sideboard.
Celestial Flare, white, target player sacrifices an attacking or blocking creature. Very interesting card. Definitely one of those things that I think has a lot of possibilities.
It'll be interesting to see whether he chooses to use it. Because Alex only attacks with 2 or 3 creatures at a time, it looks like it should be a really powerful weapon, but at the same time it does kind of have that Azorius Charm syndrome where if he's behind and Alex has that Voice of Resurgence, William's really not going to want to cast a Celestial Flare.
We see the opening land.
All right, so Jensen on the play this game. Yep. He plays 2 Buddy Lands there with a Clifftop Retreat and a Sulphur Falls. Kind of, maybe he doesn't have the shock lands to let his lands come into play untapped yet.
That's an Ooze. Get out of there, Ooze.
Right, so Scavenging Ooze for Alex does meet a Pillar of Flame.
Scavenging Ooze against William's deck is actually better than a lot of, than you might realize, because it can eat any card in a graveyard, which means Snapcaster Mage becomes less effective. We do see Domri Rod coming afterwards.
Yeah, look, there are 2 great weapons for Alex in this matchup. First, he hits Domri Rod, which is something a blue deck never wants to see on the other side. He pluses it and immediately draws a Voice of Resurgence off it.
The amount of ways in which Alex Binek can gain card advantage against a deck that is built to naturally create card advantage is really quite surprising.
Yeah, William does manage to Detention Sphere the Domri Rod, but probably what's more important there is that after playing his 3 come into play tap lands, he failed to make a 4th land drop there.
You can see in the background, Glenn Jones passes by. A Boros Reckoner and a Avacyn's Pilgrim hit the table for Alex Binek.
Yeah, it looks like Alex has really gone aggressive now with this play. He's kind of sensing that his opponent's on the back foot, that his opponent only has 3 lands. If you're the blue-white-red deck, I almost feel like you never want to stop hitting lands.
Snapcaster, Pillar, goodbye Pilgrim.
Alright, so William he has 5 cards in hand, still only 3 lands in play, and the Boros Reckoner did stay alive, so Alex is going to start to be able to go on the aggressive now and start eating into William's life tool.
Reckoner is one of those cards that unless you have a turn burn, it is very frustrating for a deck like Williams to be able to answer it.
Well, most of its ways, okay, when you look at the ways that
oh
it
my
kills
goodness,
it,
Sublime Archangel. Wow, you should look at this Sublime Archangel because it's an awesome, awesome card. White 2 for a 4/3 flyer, and then what is that? Everything gets exalted.
Right, so we see 3 triggers of Exalted. That means that Boros Reckoner that turn attacks like a 6/6. You see that Binek did play the Avacyn's Pilgrim before combat.
Yikes.
And I think it seems like what's particularly hard here is, and you touched on this before when you talked about Boros Reckoner, is that when your deck's main colors of removal are red and white, a lot of the times, especially with red concerned, it's really hard to deal with a creature without damaging it.
You see a Pillar of Flames ×2 to finish off that angel.
Well, and I mean, I would say that William had to make that play.
Oh, absolutely.
Sublime Archangel was starting to swing for 7 next turn. That said, he's got to be pretty unhappy with how that play has worked, especially knowing that his opponent has a Voice of Resurgence in hand, and now he didn't Pillar of Voice. He's spent 3 Pillar of Flames, and Voice wasn't a target of one of them.
4 mana after, and there it is, Burning Earth. William Jensen with nothing on the table, facing down a Boros Reckoner at a life disadvantage and a Burning Earth in play.
Yeah, it seems like, Alex has really done, it seems like he's closed off a lot of William's outs. William's going to have to, already had to recover from this game, but now he basically has 10 mana left with which to do so.
Yeah.
Unless he draws I think a Detention Sphere is his only way of getting that card off the table.
Now, William has 1 island in his deck. Here's the voice. In for 3. Down to 8. William now only able to spend 7 mana the rest of this game.
Right.
Before he is dead.
Yeah, we see there's 1 detention sphere on the board. That means William is really drawing, well, to very few things, because he needs to draw the other detention sphere to hit the Burning Earth to get it off the table, but that will put him down to 5 life when he does so, and conveniently enough, Alex has 5 power on the board. So we'll see if he can come up with something here. Looks like he's drawn a Celestial Flare, actually. It's the card.
The little look on Jensen's face there, he gives like an ooh. Snapcaster. Take 2, says Alex. Yep. Pillar.
Right. So he does manage to get, despite having played 3 pillars, he does manage to have another pillar to take care of that Voice of Resurgence, but it will drop him to 5 life to do so.
This game is all but over.
Well, yeah, I mean, he is in a really tough spot here, especially because Alex isn't even going to first strike the Reckoner, so this block is going to cost him 2 more life. He's going to need some way, he's going to need to gain some life. It's going to be hard for him to do that. If he had more lands in play, he would be able to stack Sphinx's Revelation so that he'd gain the life, so he basically could draw cards without taking too much damage, but he may be too far behind to do something like that.
I mean, Alex happy to take 2, lays another voice.
Yeah, there we go.
Jensen's like, that's fine, that's fine. All she wrote.
So yeah, so 2 games to 0. Alex Binek dismantles the blue-white-red flash deck with Naya aggro.